Hello everyone, I'm Amy and I'm from Capability Experiment. I'm really excited to have Varsha today here with us, and she is a UC Berkeley sophomore this year. She's studying data science and society and environment. And we're going to talk about her major and what she's studying, why she's passionate about it, and her experience. So Varsha, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, that was a really good introduction, but I'm Varsha. I'm from Missouri, and then I moved to California in high school. Um, I'm really interested in like the intersection of technology as well as like sustainability, particularly in environmental justice research, um, and looking in ways that we can use technology, including like mapping skills and like data prediction and modeling, to see what communities are most negatively impacted by climate change disproportionately, and also try to mitigate that or reduce these disparities through activist efforts.
And what actually sparked your interest in these two fields? And it's really interesting how you decided to study these two together, because I guess they're not like usually people just study these two together. And tell me, how did you find your passion in them?
I think for technology or like data science, I think like from the very like, a young age, I've always been interested in technology and like always playing like online games, like trying to I just spent hours on the computer. And I think like in high school, I was taking a lot of math classes and I was really interested in math and like trying to push forward that way. But then I realized there weren't like a lot of opportunities like in the math field itself in terms of what I wanted to do, not just like pure math, but apply math to different fields. And then I took computer science my senior year of high school. And I thought like the class itself was really interesting. Like you could really do a lot with computer science, but I don't think like I didn't see myself like sitting in a 9 to 5 job every day coding. And I really wanted to take that beyond just like the computer and use like these skills for something else. And then in high school, I also was a part of like numerous environmental organizations, both like off campus through like a local museum, like did science demonstrations there, as well as local leaders in the 21st century through Amador Valley High School, and we were really able to do a lot with like zero waste and implementing a tribe and waste system. And I think just through that experience itself, I was exposed and immersed in the environmental field and was really like compelled to do a lot and really just found my passion in there. I'm very lucky to be able to have that experience and like be able to do so much and see so much change in my school field that I'm really interested in, because I think a lot of people don't have that experience and they aren't able to find what they're passionate about so early on. So I'm definitely super grateful for that. And I think I was also like kind of initially exposed to environmental justice through like just the zero waste lens of it, as I found out about like the national waste trade and how different countries, especially like countries that are developing, have basically forced to take out recycling materials that the US doesn't want anymore. So, and then after coming to college, I was exposed to a lot more environmental justice issues and the field itself, and was definitely like, this is where I see myself, this is my passion. Deciding to like combine the two together is definitely something that I think is hard in terms of like finding a job or finding a career. I think like I'm super interested in both of them. I really want to do something combining the both, but it's hard to find like companies or organizations that really require both skills or really look into that, as a lot of tech companies are like more focused on the profit. A lot of environmental companies aren't like right now really focused on integrating technology into it. But I'm still hopeful. Hopefully I'll find something that's exactly my dream job and find something that I'm like passionate about that involves both of those fields.
So is it true that these kind of jobs are actually rare?
Based on my experience, I would say like applying to certain of them, it's just like they're not really there, especially in terms of like what I want to do. I think a lot of the reason for that is a lot of these jobs, like once you get into the company, you can hopefully like make a new position and be like, I really want to study this, and then try to integrate different fields of that. But I think like right off the bat, a lot of companies, at least like previously, haven't really been integrating the two of these fields together. Unless like some of them are like PhD required, you can do some really intense like mapping all that. But like obviously I'm just like an undergrad, I don't have that experience, so it's hard to like take limited experience into this field. But I do think the field is changing. There's a lot more people, like even at my school, that like I've heard are doing both of these fields together, and they're able to find certain opportunities that they're able to then make their own and like take different intersections and apply different skills to it. So I think it's definitely improving in the future, and I think it's very important to have both of these fields together.
I definitely think so too, because of maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the issue of environment wasn't such a priority in people's minds, and businesses just went about doing their whatever they want. But right now, people have this concern, and consumers also, they're looking for sustainable companies. I think this career path has a great future. This is actually, you're studying these two fields and you're actually double majoring them. How challenging is to double major at Berkeley on these two different fields, and just the level of difficulty, and how is it for you?
Right off the bat, I would say like double majoring itself, like I think like it just depends on your interest and everything. I'm really interested in both of these fields, so neither of the classes seem like chores or anything. There's absolutely zero overlap, so I have to take like all my courses for data science and then all my courses for society and environment. So that's definitely a lot. Like, I know a lot of people like do like a double major in like fields that are like similar, so that way it's not like you don't have to take like double the classes, but
Yes.
I am having to do that. But once again, like I'm really interested in both, so it's not like super difficult. In terms of like course load and workload, I think it really depends on the person. Obviously, a lot of the technology classes are a lot more like intense in terms of like deadlines and having to do like problem solving and like thinking on the spot with like coding. But I think like a lot of the environmental classes require the analytical thinking of writing essays, coming up with solutions, and collaboration and teamwork. In terms of overall difficulty, I've definitely felt times where I'm like, oh, this is so much harder than high school. It's like as awful. There's so much on me. But also, I felt the exact opposite of like, oh, I'm so busy today. Like, what's going on? I have no work to do. I finished all of it. So I think it really is on a spectrum, and it depends on like the person, especially the classes you take, the professors you take. It really is like an individual experience. It really can't be summed down to like easier or harder than high school. But I think I would say like the college experience itself is I prefer to high school because you just have more independence. You can choose when you want to do certain things. You can work on them starting at 1 a.m. or you can start at like a 7 p.m. And like, although like initially it's hard because you have to set that goal yourself and set it yourself, I think it's easier and like more sustainable in the future to have these skills of organization and like time management.
I know you're very interested in environmental justice, and with the pandemic, there are a lot of issues in the news that's debatable, and there are just a lot of concerns. What are some issues particularly that concerns you?
But to preface this, I have an idea and I've heard about it. I am definitely not an expert in this idea at all. I've definitely like it's just been like different conversations I've had. So I'm not an expert, but I would say there's this term called ecofascism, and basically it's like you know, a lot of people are saying like, oh, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the earth is destroying itself. Like humans are staying at home, so there's no cars, there's no pollution, all of that. But then that brings into the idea of, first off, humans as individual people are the main ones contributing to climate change. That if me driving my car from here to like San Francisco causes climate change, or me taking an airplane is the main reason for it, when it's absolutely not. It's because of these giant corporations that are polluting all these greenhouse gases, that are doing all these undercover things. They're the main ones causing climate change, not individual people. But this kind of ecofascism of like, oh, like, you know, the earth is better off without us. And it also brings to the point that like less people on earth means more sustainable, which is also not true. We have found so many solutions where we can sustain more people on earth, we can have people, we can support everyone, give them the basic needs while still being sustainable, while still promoting environmental justice. But this like idea that's coming up now in the pandemic where like, oh yeah, people are dying, but hey, look, like the earth is destroying itself, like animals are coming back, like dolphins are in the Mediterranean Sea, explores this idea of like, oh, people aren't needed, we should like kill off more people to be sustainable. But that's also absolutely not true. So I think like it's the main idea of like humans are contributing to climate change, so we should change every single thing we do to make sure we're sustainable, which I do agree with. Like we should become more sustainable as individuals, but we have to realize that we aren't the main people that are causing all these like global catastrophes. And then second, that we need to have less people on this planet to be more sustainable, because we can sustain more people, we can support more people and provide them more resources while still having a just transition to a sustainable future.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. I think the opposite thought is just very cynical, and it's not logical. It's not being analytical and looking at what's actually causing the pollution or the damage to the environment. And this also brings up, like, other than just making some little changes on the individual level, we really have to get into the policy making and actually getting involved in that process as well. If the industry regulations are not going to be changed, then we cannot have any results. And this brings me up, what do you think about Trump actually suspending the environmental regulations in March? What do you think about that?
Well, okay, I have two things. Obviously, it's awful. We should not have that at all. But I think another thing to know is that I think a lot of it falls on Trump. Like Trump is doing this, Trump is doing that. But there's so many people that act behind him that are actually the ones implementing these policies. And we need to hold those people accountable because they seem like they're people that can actually understand criticism and be able to take swift action. There's the EPA directors, all the people behind him, they're actually like doing these things behind the scenes. And they should be able to, we should go to them directly and hold them accountable for all the bad things that they're doing, essentially. And also, I think Trump as a president will have impacts down the line on the environment that are like for the foreseeable future. There's no way that every single thing he has done will impact the future of the environment greatly. And it's really like hard to see because we think like, oh, if we have a new president, everything's gonna go back, but absolutely will not. The past 4 years that he has been in office, his outlook and his actions that he's taken to promote environmental sustainability has been, in my opinion, awful. I don't think he's taken the necessary steps to really promote the environment in a way that is fair and just for all.
I think a lot of people, it's easy to just blame one person. It's easy just to say, oh yeah, it's caused by that. And once this person leaves, we're going to have a great environment again. But that's not true. Talking about societal inequality, do you see a direct correlation between mortality and societal inequality, especially with the lower income communities and communities of color?
What do you mean by mortality?
Because sometimes after doing some research, the lower income families and people of color, they're living in areas where pollution is worse. And this actually leads them to developing, this gives them greater chance of developing asthma and lung cancer, which will increase the chances, make them more vulnerable to COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely true. I think you can see that across the US, also across the world, where marginalized communities and those who are underrepresented do not have the access to resources that other people have, as well as access to education. I think like a lot of us, like me especially, have lived in like some privileged societies where I know that mask wearing is important, that I should wear hand sanitizer, I should stay 6 feet apart. But I think a lot of these communities may, if they don't speak English, or if they have a different way of communicating than us, they're not aware of these resources, and then they are more susceptible to getting COVID-19. And I think this is true across the world. It's not just something that's in the US. It's definitely like a global problem that needs to be really taken with swift action. And I think that's where some of our policy initiatives, some of our governmental initiatives have been lacking. I know especially there's been a lot of talks around how Indigenous communities have one of the highest rates of COVID-19. I think that really is, could be preventable if we really took action and educated these folks, as well as provided access to resources and communicate with them clearly on what they're supposed to do and not do, rather than just like let them be on their own and they'd be like, oh, what's going on, and try to come after the fact, because after the fact you can't really do anything, like it's already happened. So I think prevention is really important.
Yeah, I think this COVID situation reveals how inadequate these communities and how just inequality. It exposes how their living conditions are way worse than other people. Like they don't have the necessary resources. They don't have enough environmental protection for if they're living in a very crowded place, and if they're living next to factories. Sometimes the factories bring them work. Like they're happy because they create jobs, but it also creates a lot of health issues. At Berkeley, you're studying at Berkeley. What type of opportunities do you have for learning outside of the classroom or in addition to your classes?
I would say definitely the club scene at Berkeley is amazing. There's over 2,000 clubs at Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Over like any field you want. I think one thing to know about Berkeley specifically is that some clubs are like apply only. It's like a very rigorous application, which is kind of like, it's like, oh, I want to join this club. It seems so interesting. And then you have to apply to get in. It seems a little bit like there's a disconnect there. But I think I've been lucky enough to find some clubs I'm really interested in. There's something called like the Students of Color Environmental Collective, where you basically organize, especially as students of color are really underrepresented in the environmental field. I think walking into my first environmental class, I was like, there's not that many people here that look like me. Like, why is that a thing? I didn't realize really like that's something that's across the US that's very common in the environmental field itself. So having a space just like to come together and talk about different issues that we're having, as well as really focus and center ourselves on environmental justice, is really important. And I think that club has really helped me find my way at Berkeley. And then I'm also like working for a couple like on-campus places. Like there's the Office of Sustainability, where I'm helping do research reports and run a student group. And then I also work for Cal Zero Waste, where I kind of continue my work from amateur, like working on like zero waste and tribe initiatives on campus here to try to educate more people on proper waste separation. I think there is like any opportunity you want here, there you have it. Like even during like the pandemic, there's Soga, which is our organic, there's Berkeley Student Farms, which basically runs all of our student gardens, and people are going there like daily gardening, obviously like quarantine, not quarantine, like self physically distant and with masks on, but people are gardening and it's really fun. There's clubs that are going virtually now, so you can still talk to people. I think there's definitely a lot of ways you can connect and like continue these extracurricular activities to even in this virtual world and all of that.
What are some ways that the clubs are going virtual? How is it possible for them to continue their activities? You know, because we're facing some similar situations, and it's been a struggle.
100%. I think that's definitely true. When you're not there in person, you don't feel that same connection. Just like having a lot of like Zoom socials or like coming and like even it's just having a discussion or talking to people and like putting a game together or something is really important. Another thing to know is I'm going to be on like the student government like eco office this year, which is like the environmental community office, and I'm helping to actually run a lot of community engagement. So I'm hoping to create a mentorship program, especially for these new incoming freshmen that this is their first year and it's already online. They have no idea what they're doing, and partnering them with like upperclassmen that are like have been at Cal a couple years, and then really helping them foster like a solid mentor mentee relationship, as well as like having at the end of the year a social, so all these like clubs can come together and talk about what they've done this semester, and then also have like just one-on-one meetings with people. So like partner up random people and then switch every week. I'm having like coffee chats. I think like it's definitely something that you have to work towards. You're gonna try social, no one shows up. Okay, let's do a different time, different day, see what happens. But I think it really is important to have these connections so we don't feel like we're all alone. I think it's getting better in terms of like Zoom socials, especially with like the school starting back again.
Here we're teenagers and we're better at adapting than adults. And my uncle, he is a professor, but he keeps on telling me I keep on advising we should we should try our best at using Zoom and the digital technology. He just said no, there's no way that it's going to be the same as face to face. And he just repeats this stupid thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. But I think also there are some benefits potentially, if you could say there's benefits out of this, in terms of like, it's easier to connect with people. Like, you don't have to find time. You can be like, hey, just come online right now. We can talk about something. Or like, breakout rooms are really easy. There are like, if you could record lectures, I think there are like a couple of things that are a little bit positive in this time.
Yeah, I think so too. Like right now we're talking and it's super easy. Just open up Zoom and we can talk. I think that's the good part about it.
Exactly.
Opens up people's availability. They're more flexible and just be available. So I also want to ask you, what is your typical week at Berkeley? What are some classes you're taking and how busy you are?
Typical week is interesting. I think last semester I definitely took a lot more like I took a lot of classes and also joined a whole bunch of clubs. So it was very busy last semester. This semester, I'm taking 5 to 6 classes. I'm taking a couple like data science ones, like a coding one on data science. I'm taking an architecture class, which I'm really interested in because I'm considering a possible minor in that. You sound really excited.
Yeah, I'm also going to go into architecture.
Oh my God, that's really cool. Berkeley is really good for architecture too, so there's a lot of stuff.
Berkeley. I'm really interested in landscape architecture.
That's the class I'm taking. Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah. I'll see how it goes. I'm very excited too. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, super interested in it. I saw some, have you guys learned how to use the CAD tool and all the modeling? I think when you study that class, you're going to learn it in your junior and senior year. It's really cool. I saw some videos that another student who's studying this as a major in UC Davis, and she built a heritage center for Native Americans. And you have this drone overview. It's all simulated, but you have this whole entire park. And the drone kind of dives and turns, and you see all the views and the park, how it's designed. And there are some descriptions that come out like, and then you see what's told. Like, it's kind of like a film. In the beginning of a film, there's an intro, and you have all the producers' name. It's super cool. And after I saw that, I just fell in love with it. I said, yeah, I want to study that too.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm like hoping that these classes are like really like that like help you like make those projects, but we shall see. I don't know. And then I'm taking an agriculture class about like sustainable food systems or like, sustainable agriculture, which is really interesting. I've never like really delved into that field or like know much about agriculture, so hoping to like gain a lot out of that. And the typical work, I think like once again like college is different than high school where you pick your own classes. So, like on Mondays, my earliest class is 4 p.m. It goes from 4 to 6, and that's everything I have for Monday. And then like Tuesday I have like 12 to like 6 or something. So it really just depends on the day. And I think whenever I have free time, I just like do club stuff or like work at like the different places I work at. And then sometimes just like walk around, go to a park and just like sit.
Did you enjoy your schedule last year? How the classes were starting, the times?
Yeah, I think last semester my earliest start time was 2 p.m., which is really good because I actually had to go to those classes in person. So like I like can sleep in and then go to those classes. But I worked from like 9 to 1 a day, every single day. So technically it was at 9, but it's fine. And then I basically last semester, what happened was like, I was at work at 9 and then I'd club stuff until 9 p.m. So basically like 12 hours. 12 hours of just like being on campus, doing constant work, and then coming home for like 12 hours and then just like having to do homework and then sleeping. So that's what I kind of say when I mean like it was a lot of work. But I think once again, it was really, really fun. Like everything I'm doing, everything I've done is super interesting to me, and I'm really passionate about all of it. So like it doesn't really seem like work. It seems just like, oh, something I'm doing like for fun, like it's my passion. I would be doing this anyway. It's like intense, but I would say like I've definitely been able to like adapt to it and learn that like I need to take breaks for myself. I need to do self-care, as well as like watch my own like health and mental health. But I think it's definitely like been a journey.
It's really cool when you find something you really love doing, because who wants to do something that they don't like and just be so bored or be so frustrated because they don't even like it? Just be excited by what I'm learning every day.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something like a lot of my friends too, like some of my friends at least, like they don't really have a passion there. They like don't know what they're interested in. So they're just taking all these classes and it's hard for them. So I think like I've definitely been, it's like I don't know how this happened, like where I've been able to just find two things I'm really interested in. I really want to do them, and like I'm grateful enough to have found those like so early on. So I think a lot of people find their passions or like develop them later on in their life, and then like they have to go back or they like have to integrate that some other way into their job. But being able to start from the very beginning with like a really strong goal in mind is really helpful for me to like continue and know where I'm going.
What career development options are you considering after university? Have you thought about that?
I obviously they always in your mind as a college student, like what are you gonna do after you leave here? You have to have something planned up.
People ask about it here, like
I think like I'm still like new enough. Like I'm still undergrad, still a sophomore, so it's not like super pressing. Like if I was like a senior, they'd obviously be like, you have to have something lined out. Like what are you doing? You have to make money. Right now like I want to work in industry first and go out and explore. Hopefully find something that combines both my interests. If not, having to maybe like do a job in the environment and then maybe supplement it with like taking classes online to like refresh my skills of like coding, or maybe forcing myself to take some coding job that I have to sit there, but also like really hopefully do like active suffrage, join like a volunteer or like do something on the side that really combines my passion until I find a job that supports both. But I also do think it's important, at least for me in my field, to go back and like do education and maybe get a master's, like a higher ed degree, just so I have further specialization in maybe even like both of those fields together, and then can take that and do something with it. But yeah, I think I want to do industry first and then gain that experience and then go and do a higher ed degree and then go back and do some more work.
You said you are starting a mentorship, and this will help freshmen who are just coming to orientate themselves within campus. Did you actually feel like you do not know what everything is when you first came? What kind of advice would you give yourself if you could right now?
I would say I definitely did feel like, first off, like at Berkeley especially, there's like imposter syndrome, where like you're like, oh, there's no way, like how did I get in? There's so many talented people here. Everyone here is like smarter than you. I think first off having to like get rid of that and be like, no, you got in for a reason, and like really like constantly reminding yourself of that. But I think like I like joined early on, like I found these clubs either just like through like looking on Facebook and like collecting the dots, like finding all these clubs, and then like join like SCEC, which is like the Students of Color Environmental Collective. And then through that I was able to like find a lot more clubs or like people that like have interests in line of mine and like branch out that way. So I would say like trying to find like something that like was really solid to begin with, and then trying to like use that to branch off and find different clubs that you're interested in. Like someone there comes with me in a different club, and I joined that club, and then joined a different club, and then joined that club. And then pieces of advice, I would say for me particularly, I would say try to have joined more or like try to explore more freshman year, because I think I kind of stayed in my bubble and was like not super like outgoing in terms of like finding people or finding clubs. And then I did that spring semester, but then obviously everything shut down. And then only had half the semester to really like, enjoy all those things that I was doing. But I think like it really depends on the people. Like I know some people really went hard freshman year. They like, applied to like 15 clubs. They got into all of them, and then now they're like overwhelmed. So maybe for those people, take it back. I think maybe just advice in general is like to really know what you want in college. Like have that like journey. I think taking freshman year or first freshman year fall semester like slow and understanding that this is a huge transition for you and everyone else here, that you don't have to know everything at the beginning. You don't have to like have joined like the club that you're going to be in for the rest of your life like through this, or like, join the sorority or whatever at that moment. You can like take things slow and take that time to really explore and meet people, especially like form friendships that you're going to have lasted the 4 years, because I think friendships are really important. You don't have to have they don't have to be like networking connections or be like, I'm only gonna make friends with people in my field because they're gonna find me a job. Like it's really important to like get out of your comfort zone and like find new people, and then like take risks and like don't be afraid to be like, I like need to go to this class or I need to do this like this time. You can kind of like explore and take risks and yeah, have fun. I think also it's important. It's college, like it's once in a lifetime opportunity.
Do you think that by focusing on just your field, the clubs that related to what you're studying and not really going out, you were able to have a greater focus and you were able to devote more energy into those clubs, and you're not just spreading yourself too thin and looking all over the place?
I would say like personally that's how it's been. I think like I've been able to really find like delve into certain issues, like specifically like either whether it's environmental justice or whether it's specifically on like zero waste. I've been able to really focus in on those or code in those key issues. But I also do see the importance or the need for like taking maybe just a club that's outside your field, and either if it's just to meet new people or to gain new skills. Like in high school, I was a part of DECA, which is like a business club. And although like I really didn't have an interest in doing business, I was able to learn a lot of those skills that really helped with any other thing that I was doing in the future. So I think maybe trying to find something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, a little bit like different, but you can still use that and like supplement your other interests in. And maybe you'll find something you're really passionate about through that, and then you'll end up doing that instead. Like just trying new things and not being like I'm in this major in this college, I have to do this specifically, and maybe like branch out too.